down on bended knee, staying focused, meditating, praying, hold on.
Of a New Jersey state trooper during a shootout that left one of her fellow activists dead. She was shot twice by police during the incident. In 1979, she managed to escape from jail and flee to Cuba, where she received political asylum. She long proclaimed her innocence. In 1998, Democracy Now! Aired her reading an open letter to Pope John Paul II during his trip to Cuba. She wrote the message after New Jersey state troopers sent the Pope a letter asking him to call for her extradition. This is Assata Shakur.
My name is Assata Shakur, and I was born and raised in the United States. I am a descendant of Africans who were kidnapped and brought to the Americas as slaves. I spent my early childhood in the racist, segregated South. I later moved to the northern part of the country, where I realized that Black people were equally victimized by racism and oppression. I grew up and became a political activist, participating in student struggles, the anti-war movement, and most of all, in the movement for the liberation of African Americans in the United States. I later joined the Black Panther Party, an organization that was targeted by the COINTELPRO program, a program that was set up by the Federal Bureau of Investigation to eliminate all political opposition to the U.S. government's policies, to destroy the Black liberation movement in the United States, to discredit activists, and to eliminate potential leaders. Under the COINTELPRO program, many political activists were harassed, imprisoned, murdered, or otherwise neutralized. As a result of being targeted by COINTELPRO, I, like many other young people, was faced with the threat of prison, underground, exile, or death. The FBI, with the help of local police agencies, systematically fed false accusations and fake news articles to the press, accusing me and other activists of crimes we did not commit. Although in my case, the charges were eventually dropped or I was eventually acquitted, the national and local police agencies created a situation where, based on their false accusations against me, any police officer could shoot me on sight. It was not until the Freedom of Information Act was passed in the mid-70s that we began to see the scope of the United States government's persecution of political activists. At this point, I think that it is important to make one thing very clear. I have advocated, and I still advocate, revolutionary changes in the structure and in the principles that govern the United States. I advocate self-determination for my people and for all oppressed people inside the United States. I advocate an end to capitalist exploitation, the abolition of racist policies, the eradication of sexism, and the elimination of political repression. If that is a crime, then I am totally guilty. To make a long story short, I was captured in New Jersey in 1973 after being shot with both arms held in the air and then shot again from the back. I was left on the ground to die, and when I did not, I was taken to a local hospital where I was threatened, beaten, and tortured. In 1977, I was convicted in a trial that can only be described as a legal lynching. In 1979, I was able to escape with the aid of some of my fellow comrades. I saw this as a necessary step, not only because I was innocent of the charges against me, but because I knew that the racist legal system in the United States, I would receive no justice. I was also afraid that I would be murdered in prison. I later arrived in Cuba, where I am currently living in exile as a political refugee. The New Jersey State Police and other law enforcement officials say they want to see me brought to justice. But I would like to know what they mean by justice. Is torture justice? I was kept in solitary confinement for more than 2 years, mostly in men's prisons. Is that justice? My lawyers were threatened with imprisonment and imprisoned. Is that justice? I was tried by an all-white jury without even the pretext of impartiality and then sentenced to life in prison plus 33 years. Is that justice? Let me emphasize that justice for me is not the issue I am addressing here. It is justice for my people that is at stake. When my people receive justice, I am sure that I will receive it too. I ask nothing for myself. I only ask you to examine the social reality of the United States and to speak out against the human rights violations that are taking place. On this day, the birthday of Martin Luther King, I am reminded of all those who gave their lives for freedom. Most of the people who live on this planet are still not free. I ask only that you continue to work and pray to end oppression and political repression. It is my heartfelt belief that all the people on this earth deserve justice, social justice, political justice, and economic justice. I believe it is the only way we will ever achieve peace and prosperity on this earth. I hope that you enjoy your visit to Cuba. This is not a country that is rich in material wealth, but it is a country that is rich in human wealth, spiritual wealth, and moral wealth. Respectfully yours, Assata Shakur, Havana, Cuba.
We'll pour to the creative spirit, the great Ashe, out of which we all emerge. Ashe. Ashe. We pour to that creative spirit by whatever name we know it, whatever name you hold in your heart, in your mind, whatever name your ancestors gave, whatever name you learned as a child, whatever name you believe it to be, whatever name you believe it to be in spirit or in science. Ashe. Ashe. We pour to the first human beings who came into existence on this planet, the first human beings who raised the first structures, who cooked the first meals, who taught the first children, who had the first children, the first Africans, the first people who stood upright, who walked, who figured out how to stay on this planet, who figured out how to pass that knowledge on to their children and their children's children, the mothers and fathers of civilization. Ashe. Ashe. We pour the next libation to their grandchildren, their children's children, those who raised the great early civilizations of Kemet and Kush and Monomotapa, the great medieval civilizations of Ghana and Mali and Songhai and Kanem Bornu. We pour to those who the great civilizations of the Igbo people and the Hausa people and the Kikongo people and the Mabara people, the great Mande civilizations, the great Kikongo, the great civilizations of Southern Africa, the Bantu people, the great civilizations of Southeast Africa, the Dinka, the Shilluk, the Noor. We pour to those millions who raised the foundations from which the world would learn what it meant to be human in the world. Ashe. Ashe. We pour to their children who upon the arrival on the shores of people they had never seen before, found themselves captured and marched overland, found themselves perishing by the millions before they were held on the holding cells and the open air pens on the coast of West, Central, Southern, and East Africa. We pour to the ancestors who did not know as they were stripped of all clothing and sent denuded into boats, packed like animals, and strewn their bones across the floor of the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. We pour to them who in the last moment on Africa grabbed the sand and grabbed the dirt and put it in their mouths and understood that the only thing they might have to preserve their place in that continent was their memory of that place and their ability to pass it on to their children. We pour to them, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to those Africans and their children who finding themselves cast adrift in Santiago, Cuba, who found themselves cast adrift in Porto, Spain, Trinidad, and Port-au-Prince, Haiti, who found themselves cast adrift in New Orleans and Charleston and Mobile, who found themselves cast adrift in Salvador, Bahia, who found themselves cast adrift in Barbados and the archipelago that formed the wayward and the windward coast. We found them in these places learning Portuguese and Spanish and French, whose often first words was, "Oh my God, oh Madre de Dios," who found themselves praying to survive and pass on to their children the memories. We pour to those ancestors who are represented in the thousands buried in all the square miles of where we stand, and who sit here buried before us in 400 caskets forged of wood from West Africa with Adinkra symbols. Each one of them, each woman, man, and child, symbolic of millions. The children of those who could not be killed, we pour Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to their children who somehow survived the hells of enslavement and fought for emancipation in the Caribbean, the French, British, Dutch Caribbean, who fought for emancipation in South America, who fought for emancipation in Central America, who fought the struggles we refer to as the Civil War in the United States, who came out of that, marched out of enslavement through Reconstruction, and found themselves making great migrations, eventually ending up in places like New York. Their children's children, who making a way for themselves, became our great-great-grandparents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our parents. Those who, when the first bones were discovered in this space, held their hands and said, "Stop, no more." We are here to speak for those who can no longer speak with their mouths. We pour for those ancestors, some of whom came to Howard University in 2004 and followed these caskets all the way back to New York. The ones whose names we know and the ones whose names we don't. And at this moment, as we pour this libation, I would ask anyone who feels comfortable to say the name of someone in your bloodline who is no longer physically here, but who you know made it possible for you to be here.
Just came holding spears, and when the moment was right, leaped out and lanced the lifeblood of would-be masters on slave ships, hurling ourselves into oceans, slitting the throats of our captors. We took their wits and their ships. Blood flowed in the Atlantic, and it wasn't all ours, and we carried it on. Come on. Carry it on. Carry it on.
Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Henri Christophe in Haiti. We pour to the great Avengers, Nanny of the Maroons of Jamaica. We pour to the great ancestors, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass. Say the names that you study. Who are the names of the ancestors that you have come to hold in your heart and your mind as you hope that you can do what they did for us, for your children and children's children? Let's say some of those famous names. Malcolm X, Ethel Hamer, John Henry Clark, John G. Jackson, Jacob Carruthers. And finally, two final libations. We pour to those who make it possible for us to do what we do. We pour to these rangers who stand guardian over this sacred space. We pour to these Africans and these folks who have come from Howard University, the staff, the faculty, the administrators who brought us here today to bear witness. This is not a libation, but an affirmation, because their hearts still beat, their tongues still speak, Their minds still think and their minds still wish the best for us. We pour for all of those people who surrounded us on this journey today and made it possible for us to be here. We pour this affirmation of thanks, Ashe.
Ashe.
And finally, we pour to your children's children's children who will one day stand on this stage and speak your name. Ashe.
Ashe.
War is never easy. It's bound to bring on hardship. It's bound to make you weary. Reach out for me. This is what she's saying. And war will have us parting. Our path is getting distant. We might not see each other until we win. So until then, until we win. Look for me in the whirlwind, trying to see my face in the whirlwind, try to grab her hand in the whirlwind. To say, do all you can to help your sister, woman, brother, man through the world. Reach out for me. Reach out for she. Reach out for she. For victory.
If I could reach the border, then I would step across. Oh yeah. So please take me to the border. No matter what the cost, 'cause I'm leaving it. That I know. Leaving out the road. Oh yes, now, this place could never be our home. Say we wow, oh, oh. Yes, we wow, oh. We want, oh. Yes, we want, oh, oh, oh. So please take me to the border. And I will pay the car, cause I'm leaving again.
In a cell with 2 guards in front of the cell 24 hours a day, and a cell between 2 gun towers that you could train them directly on the cell. I was told that I was in the Yardville unit for women, even though I was the only woman, and they tried to keep me there for the rest of my life. My grandmother came to visit me there to tell me a dream. And she came with all of my family and everybody was happy. And I'm like, what's happening with y'all? And they said, no, she had a dream. And I was like, okay. And so my grandmother's dream was that she was dressing me, that she was in an old house that she lived in when she lived in New York still. And she was putting clothes on me. I said, is that the dream? She said, that's the dream. And I said, well, was I little or big? She said, no, you were big. So I said, oh my God, the only time people dress anybody when they're grown is when they're dead. And so she said, no, I know what you're thinking. No. What this dream means is that you are going to leave this prison. I don't know when, but it's going to be much less time than you've already spent here. That prison, I was put in a...
No matter what's the problem, cause I'm leaving it. That I know. Leaving out the road. Oh yeah, now, this place could never be our home. Say we want, oh. Yes, we want, oh. We want, oh. We want, oh. Yes, we want, oh. So please take me to the border. And I will pay the car, cause I'm leaving it. Leaving out. Leaving out the road. This place could never be home. Say we want, oh. Don't know we want, oh. We want, oh. Don't know we want, oh. wow. So please take me to the border. No matter what's the cost, cause we're leaving here. Leaving
Some things money can't buy, you know.
leaving
Things can't pay for. No matter how they're valued by the world of men.
Oh yeah, nah. This place could never be our home. Say we wow, oh. Yes, we wow, oh. We wow, oh.
Tune into the Ancestral Rock Radio Station for record information and help quality music. We give thanks for the opportunity to be together this afternoon, reflecting on the beauty of life, you know. Those of y'all loyal listeners, it seemed like, I won't say a broken record, but a recurring record. And after all, the name of the program is the Ancestral Rock. And we are truly standing on the shoulders of great, wonderful, creative, courageous, ingenious, loving, visionary, beautiful mothers and fathers who have come before us. Reflecting on the fact that this time last week we were on the radio, Mama Assata Shakur had already began her journey, as our people say, to the other side. We were not aware, talking to our sister Uli Matatao and some other special guests about Dead Prez. So you know, today on the Ancestral Rock, we're going to pay special attention to her. Not just because she is someone that is well known and some people would say trending in the social media, but because, again, we're standing on the Ancestral Rock. We're grateful for the words of one who has already gone before us, whose shoulders we stand on. In the context of WRFG, Air Shifter, you know, coming on to my 30th year in the context of African, a recipient, a holder of a baton from our elders, from our predecessors in the liberation process, in the context of just a son, you know, a son of the soil, and so much else. We're talking about Iya Fulani, Suni Ali. And she gave us a soundtrack to today's rotation, as she often does, coming through the pen and the inspiration of Baba Bilal Suni Ali, whose shoulders we stand on as well. It's called Look For Me in the Whirlwind. And it was actually sung, that rendition was sung at the homegoing of another one of our WRFG Radio Free Griot ancestors, Mama Njeri Algani. So when we say we stand on the Ancestral Rock, again, it's not poetry, even though it may be poetic. We're glad it is, because as Mama Marimba reminded us, culture is a people's immune system. And it's a beautiful thing, even as we speak of Olori Assata Shakur. One of the things that she said that really always stood out in my consciousness is the fact that the meaning of revolution ultimately is to build something beautiful. You know, revolutionaries get a certain kind of perspective in this modern world, especially again due to the misinformation that is often spewed through mass media. Revolutionaries are looked at as people who simply tear down something that needs to be, you know, something that's wicked, something that's evil, something that's oppressive. Revolutionaries burn it down, and that's what is generally the perception. And there's truth to that. The main thing, though, that Mama Sata was saying, as we repeat, because this is why we're here, is that revolutionaries, primarily, their goal, the work of revolutionaries is to build something beautiful, build something just, build something equitable, build a new world. So revolutionaries are builders. And there's a time and place for everything. As our brothers and sisters in the 5% Nation say, the number 8, it means build and destroy. And that's a reflection of a universal principle. That's why it's, shared in that way. So we're grateful for the opportunity to be here today. As Mama Assata said, part of being a revolutionary is creating a vision that is more humane, that is more fun too, that is more loving. It's really working to create something beautiful. So we give thanks for Olori Assata Olugbala Shakur. And of course, we're going to be celebrating her throughout the course of this program. And before we knew of Mama Sata's transition, most of us got the news a week from tomorrow, early Friday morning, late Thursday night. We had already scheduled an interview with a brother who is no stranger to some of you all, and maybe new to some of you. It brings a medicine that is, and that's not a play on words, in terms of a gift. Everyone in this world that is living out their purpose is actually bringing a gift to the world. Let's just make that clear from the jump so we can know we're talking the same page, we're talking the same language. But he brings something that is really, as I thought about it, is really reflective of what Mama Assata Shakur is just talking about. We often reflect on the fact that the best way to honor the people who have gone before us, who we say we appreciate love, whose energy and example we say we appreciate love, is to pick up their weapon on the battlefield, whatever that weapon look like, So if you say you love Dr. Sebi, continue the healing journey. You say you love Nana Ando, whose transition day is in a few days, October 8th, Dr. Kweku Ando, and so on and so forth. You say you love Mama Assata, continue to do what she did so masterfully, and will now have the opportunity to do in another realm even more powerfully. It's worthy to say that traditionally, amongst the indigenous people of the world, especially most of the African cultures that I'm aware of, when someone transitions in that first period of time, maybe up to a year or so, you don't really call their name in terms of libation. Hail them and we exalt their works for sure. It's just a period of transition, and there's such a legion that we know by the grace of the Creator that is meeting her on the other side. And they're strong. And as one of our elders said the other day, often grossly unemployed, underutilized, who also have that opportunity and are waiting for the opportunity to aid us. So we pray that Mama Assata Shakur will journey well, and that those of us who are behind, who know of her works and admire her work, will continue to emulate her works. But as I said, on the phone line, on the line with us, I have a brother when I was just reflecting on the fact, and I'm grateful that this is just how we do on this program, because this is what we've been, this is what we've been mandated with. The Ancestral Rock, again, is not just a play on words. It's not a play on words at all. It's the true reality. And I want to say before I introduce my guest, of course, we're in the midst of the fun drive, the fall fun drive. And we're continuing to expect your call of support, your donation of support that can come through many different means, because that's the only reason why you're able to hear this kind of uncut, uncut programming, unconditionally loving for the people of the world, especially the indigenous people of the world who have been disproportionately attacked and oppressed. You know, that type of vibe there. You know what I mean? Unapologetic in the way that we share what we have to share. The reason we're able to do that is because we're supported by the listeners. We're not at all supported by any kind of corporations who thrive off of the blood and sweat of the people. We're supported by the listeners, 52 years strong and then some. 52 years strong, supported by the listeners supported. And this is a time of year, the autumn again, when the listeners give themselves the opportunity to do as Nana Fukia reminded us. Last week, we were sharing this proverb. Simba Simbi, hold up that which holds you up. Simba Simbi, Congolese proverb. Hold up that which holds you up. Yeah, man. Nurture your culture. Nurture your culture. Feed that which feeds you. So we're here. WRFG.org is the website. You can make a secure pledge on there. WRFG.org. Donate and then choose the Zephy. And you choose Zephy because Zephy covers 100% of the merchant processing fee. Also, you can do a Cash App at $WRFG893. That's W for wisdom, R for radio, F for free, G for Georgia. WRFG893. And also PayPal office at WRFG.org. We're going to welcome our special guest and continue with our programming. And we won't pause the programming unless the donations stop coming in. This is a time of year where we actually absolutely, again, unapologetically tell you that you got to pay for what you get. You're paying for it every day in one way or the other. And it's something that, or you're receiving it every day, I should say, one way or the other. And it's a reciprocal process, you know, uncut programming, 24 hours a day that gives you the real news, gives you the music you haven't heard in a while unless you're playing it for yourself in your house or you're thinking about where your grandmama or your uncle used to play, and so on and so forth. Your station for progressive information and handpicked quality music. So as the cool ruler would say, let off something and make it easy on ourselves to continue this programming. On the phone line with us, we have our brother Heru Ofori Atta. And I'm not going to read all of his bio, but I want to tell you a little bit about him. And then I know that the conversation really will be the real introduction, you know. Of course, we know, like they say, you don't know the history of the author, you don't know what you've read. Our brother is an avid researcher and public intellectual who routinely engages in lectures and interviews worldwide. Heru is the author of a new book entitled The Successful Eradication of Cancer Using an Intercellular Parasite Theory, end quote. That's the name of the book. Again, The Successful Eradication of Cancer Using an Intercellular Parasite Theory. The research and protocol contained in this book have been yielding consistent cancer reversals, irrespective of cancer stage or location in the body. There are video testimonials, and of course, the website is Herbal Results. Herbal Results. He's the founder and president of Herbal Results Industries, where his company formulates, manufactures, and distributes herbal medicine to the nation. And I want to welcome him without any further ado to the airwaves, the airways of Rock WRFG Atlanta. Brother Heru.
Yes, Ross Kofi.
One love, King. How are you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm good, man. I'm on top of the world, man. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, man.
You're shining, man. Your countenance glowing. For those of y'all checking out us, on YouTube and Facebook and everything, of course, you can tune in with us on the Farm YouTube as well. Another way to link the program. Are you glowing, brother?
Yeah, man, I feel good. You know, it's an honor and a pleasure to be on your show and to connect with you. I believe we have mutual friends, you know. So for years, I've heard some very good things about you, man. So, you know, big up
Likewise.
yourself, you know. Yeah, man, enough
Likewise.
respect.
Likewise. And I'm giving thanks that you're here today. And I don't know if you heard the introduction. I was just contextualizing even this short conversation we're having and the work that you're doing in the tradition of our ancestors, you know, and thinking about what's the best way to honor Assata Shakur, who, you know, it's another story that we'll get into later on in the program. A lot of people romanticize that warrior life, you know, the life of standing against the force of imperialism and all that means, you know, in different ways. And I was thinking of, you know, there's many different ways that our people have been, our reality has been under assault. We think of the politics, and we think of, you know, still to this day, the first image that comes into the mind when people say revolutionary is a gun or something, or a bomb, you know. We don't often think of chemical warfare. We don't often think of ongoing chemical warfare. Maybe when you think of COINTELPRO, you think of, you know, how, you know, heroin and other things was leached into the community. You know, we hear the story time and time again of how Thunderbird, that drink, that cheap liquor, was launched one evening onto the community and all that. But we don't think of some of the other effects of this just industrial colonial reality, neo-colonial reality that we're in. And so I love the fact that you've been focusing on that part of the reality, which is so crucial if we're going to do all the other things we say we want to do and build a new world. We have to be here to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. It's, you know, it's extremely important because most people are chasing money, you know, but without your health, none of that money means anything, right? You could take a billionaire who's terminally ill and they'll give away all that money just to be healthy and young again. And so, you know, throughout the years, we look around and we look at patterns and we look at certain trends. And we see that according to the CDC, the number one killer of human beings is nothing other than heart disease, right? And then they say number 2 is cancer. And then number 3 is actually something very interesting from Johns Hopkins University and Harvard University study of 2015. It's called iatrogenics. And I'm not sure if your audience knows what iatrogenics is, but it's just a fancy way of saying death by doctor, right? So according to them, this is not Heru talk, and according to them, the 3rd leading cause of death is medical error. Then the 4th is respiratory illnesses, and after that is diabetes and autoimmune illnesses. So we've also noticed that over time, we've had parents, we've had family members, we've had schoolmates, you know, if you're over 40, just about everybody's on some type of pharmaceutical medication. That is not normal, but it has become normalized. And oftentimes, and I would say oftentimes because I get phone calls every day with the type of work that I do, and 80% of the time, I'm going over the side effects of people's pharmaceutical medications that they have no idea about and have never been told about. So when you take the high blood pressure medications, there's a whole list of side effects, and people can go to a place like drugs.com and I show them how to do it themselves. So I'm not the only source of information. It's more of teaching a man how to fish as opposed to giving them the fish, right? And then when they look at the side effects of these medications, many times these medications, you'll see acute renal failure. And so now you start to understand why you have so many dialysis clinics, particularly in our communities. And people are taking these medications and have no idea, and they're not being told. They're not being given informed consent. And then come to find out there are certain herbs that will reverse high blood pressure just as well as lisinopril or captopril or any of these ACE inhibitor pharmaceutical medications. And the studies are there all on the U.S. National Institute of Health website. So, you know, I endeavored to make a tincture called olive leaf extract because I studied the different herbs, and I found that the olive leaf extract, the extract from the leaves of the olive tree, has many medicinal qualities if extracted properly. under the rules of solubility. And the U.S. National Institute of Health website is replete with studies on how olive leaf extract not only lowers high blood pressure, not only gets rid of inflammation, not only lowers high blood sugar, kills all pathogens such as viruses, bacteria, fungal infections, and parasites. And the list goes on and on. It's almost like an all-in-one. So I endeavored to make it and serve people with that as an option to deal with their illnesses, along with understanding dietary toxic inputs. So from that, we've been able to get outside
dietary
results.
Toxic inputs.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's a profound thing you just said there. I don't want to race past that.
Yeah, man. No, that's very important, because when you start talking about health, see, I'm a man. You're from the Caribbean?
Yeah, Guyana.
Oh, you're from Guyana. Okay. All right. So you're from Georgetown?
From Buxton.
Buxton? Okay. Yeah, man. I have a lot of people from Guyana. I prefer Guyana roti over Trini roti, by the way. Yeah, man. So
very well.
Yeah, man. Inside the roti wars, So, when you come from the Caribbean, you tend to have, or from a tropical area like Africa, you tend to have more connection to the land, and you tend to grow things, right? So, I'm a man. I live on a mango orchard, right? So I grow mango trees, right? And when you grow these trees, it gives you a lot of insight into human health. And this is what we're going to talk about: the dietary toxic inputs. When we start to look at life, we start to understand that all problems fall under a problem-solving technique called first principles thinking. So first principles thinking is the approach to get to the very core of a problem, to solve it in the least steps possible. So you identify what is the immutable truths of this particular issue, and then what is the limiting factors. So those are the two questions that you ask. So when we start to talk about health, we find out like the health of a fruit tree depends on, one, the immutable truths is that it needs sunlight and it needs water, right? But what are the limiting factors that would affect the health of a tree? Those limiting factors are two things and two things only: toxic inputs or not enough nutritive inputs. So either the tree is receiving toxic inputs or the tree is also receiving not enough nutritive inputs. In a fruit tree needs nitrogen, magnesium, iron, those types of things. And if it's not receiving that, that tree will be sickly, and it will be subject to all types of opportunistic infections, and it will not be robust. But if you disconnect any of the toxic inputs that the tree receives, and you give it all of its nutritive inputs that it needs, that tree will be strong and robust, and will give you fruit, very healthy fruit. And the tree will also be able to fight off any types of infections in the area that other trees that are suffering from, and it'll be able to fight it off by itself. So the same applies to human beings. And you start to find out that the overwhelming majority of illnesses are due to toxic inputs and not enough nutritive inputs. So we have to identify what those toxic inputs would be. And those toxic inputs would be things that cause inflammation, because the overwhelming majority of diseases are inflammatory diseases. And we know it because in terms of medical nomenclature, the diseases will end with the word itis. Itis is Latin for inflammation, flame, or fire. So they've already told you through linguistics that the majority of diseases are caused by inflammation, just by the fact that they have the word itis at the end of it. And when you start to look at high blood pressure, diabetes, and cancer, we see them all as inflammatory diseases. And then we would then ask a question: what is the cause of inflammation? And we get to find out that inflammation comes from three sources. Inflammation comes from injury, and inflammation is always coupled with swelling. So any site of inflammation is swelling. So if someone hits you in the shoulder with a baseball bat, your shoulder will swell. That will be a site of inflammation. That's the injury. Get into a car accident, you bruise something. The next thing that causes inflammation is infection. So if you get an infection, you've seen someone with a herpes infection on their lip, the lip is swollen. Well, a site of infection will be a site of inflammation, and you'll see swelling. Well, the other thing that causes inflammation, which is the main port of inflammation for human beings in industrial society, is their food. And the food that causes inflammation the most is sugar, glucose. And we know that sugar does that because of what sugar does to the teeth, right? Sugar can burn a hole into your teeth. We call it cavities. And your teeth and your bones are the hardest part of your body. So if sugar can do that to your teeth, then you have to now imagine what sugar is doing to your soft internal organs. Right? It's causing chronic inflammation throughout your body. And in fact, we've identified that as actually the cause, or the majority cause, of high blood pressure, heart disease, and diabetes. And they all go hand in hand because the true culprit is something called insulin resistance. I'll be covering this in a lecture that I'll be doing October 11th in Atlanta. And I can give the address. If
Yeah,
that's,
we'd love for you to do that. Yeah, because we I wanted to just like you'd say, let you cook. There's so many questions. There's so many questions. I just you're on a flow and giving us some very fundamental information. Even for those, I would argue that wouldn't even be able to be in Atlanta or whatever. Giving them. I appreciate love how you share your resources and give people homework. In that spirit of teaching someone how to fish, that's the true way of the Jegna, just empowering the people, and we're grateful for that. So please do give the information. We're going to take a very short break and then come forward with some more from you. Because I want to get in, ask a few questions.
Sure.
Just do give the information. The family's been hearing the announcement as well, and it'll be played on this program coming up. But just give the information about the lecture you're going to be doing.
Right. So it's called the Eradicate Conference, and we're going to be focused on diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, and reversing those naturally, along with cancer. The first time that I came some months ago, I did a lecture on the successful eradication of cancer using intracellular parasite theory and talked about the protocol that we developed at Herbal Results, which is a mix of diet, immune system fortification, and anti-parasitics. And now for the second lecture that I'll be doing, which is a follow-up to the first lecture, we actually have 4 people who had cancer, who have gotten reversals, who are going to be there physically to tell their story.
Wow.
Not only did they have cancer, but they also had high blood pressure and diabetes, because these are all metabolic illnesses. And many people who come to me with cancer also have high blood pressure and diabetes because they all go hand in hand. And when you reverse the cancer properly, the diabetes and high blood pressure also gets reversed. And they're all going to tell their stories. It's going to be 2 men and 2 women, and they're going to be there live and direct. And it's going to be on October 10th and 11th. So October 10th, we'll be having Dr. Ruby Swift speak about reversing diseases and talking about what's going on in the allopathic field. And then that'll be from 7 to 10 p.m. And then on Saturday from 5 to 10 p.m., I will be speaking with our special guest speakers, people who've gotten cancer reversals, high blood pressure, and diabetes reversals, all in one person. Every one of them had several reversals, not just cancer reversals.
True.
And the address will be 2148 Noonan Street. That's 2148 Noonan Street, East Point, Georgia, 30344, at a place called Arts Exchange.
Yes.
So I'll be speaking at 5 p.m. on Saturday. I think it's going to be historical, because I think very rarely when you have lectures, or health lectures, do you have people with cancer reversals coming live and direct and telling you, I did this protocol, it worked for me. They didn't do chemotherapy, they didn't do radiation, they didn't do any of the what they call standards of care, which tend to be extremely toxic. They used a non-toxic approach, and they were able to heal themselves at home. So you're going to see stage 3 prostate cancer reversals. You're going to see stage 4 liver cancer, kidney cancer reversal, where the particular woman was given 90 days to live. And her 90th day was in August, and she's alive and well. All these people are going to be coming, they're going to be telling their story, and they've gotten reversals this year. So they're very recent in the reversals because, you know, they were diagnosed with very serious cancer. They were told they weren't going to make it, and they tried something different. Some of them heard about my lecture. They contacted me, and they went ahead and did the protocol, and we're going to share the results with them live and direct with the audience. And so I think that anyone in Atlanta, if you've got high blood pressure, if you've got diabetes, and you've got people with cancer, and your family, loved ones, it's a very interesting thing to look into. So we're gonna be there live and direct.
Give thanks. Our brother Heru is with us, Heru Tafuriata, and he will be with us for a few more moments. You tune into your station for progressive information and handpicked quality music, WRFG Atlanta, 89.3 on the FM dial, WRFG.org. We're gonna play something real quick and come forward with more information with more brother Heru as we continue to put our eyes on the rainbow. Mama Sata live. There's so much to be said. And one thing about life, one thing life has surely taught us is that it's not a rush. As my brethren would say, I and I is African, we're not Russian anyway. Well, even if you're Russian, rush is a different thing. You know, take time and move through. And at the same time, you know, the beauty of balance in our indigenous proverbial wisdom. They say haste make waste, but if you linger, you mash your finger. You will hear, haste make waste, but if you linger, you mash your finger. WRFG Atlanta, we'll be right forward with Brother Heru and more vibes. Tune into yourself, and again, keep the phone lines ringing at 404-523-8989. 404-523-8989. That's really what it is. That's what we need to be focused on right now in the midst of all that we do have to focus on. You know, we got a full plate. You know, one main thing right now, the reason that we're able to have this discourse is that we have a radio station in Atlanta named WRFG that does not listen or does not answer to anyone, but its listeners, listener supported. And that station is 100,000 watt of pure power and broadcasting all over the world, bringing you international guests, local guests, guests from right in your neighborhood you didn't even know existed, to all the way on other parts of the world, like our brother Heru joining us from West Africa right now. The reason we're able to do that is that, again, we do not take money from weapons manufacturers or any of them kind of, them and those, you know, any of the people who are who are contributing that toxic input that Brother Heru is talking about. It's a different thing. We are funded by you, the family. So please pick up your phone. If you're close to the phone and you want to touch base this way, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. 404-523-8989. Also, WRFG.org is the website. And when you go to WRFG.org, you choose the Zeffy option, that's ZEFFY, and that will give you 100. They will pay for 100% of all the fees associated with your merchant processing. All right. Again, Cash App, $ WRFG893, WRFG893, and PayPal office at WRFG.org. Stay tuned to yourself.
went down there with all the lust and the greed. But don't care how they try, they still can't succeed. Yes, they kill and keep killing. But the more that they kill, the more they see coming. And when they try and they can't make hand with Africans, they just pack up the bag and they gone to the land. Why? The more Africans they gone down, it's the more Africans we come. The more warriors that they kill, it's the more they see come. They kill Zulu, they kill Zulu, they kill Mosi, they kill Swansea, Matambele, the more warriors that they gone down. We get back Mozambique so easy. Zimbabwe and Angola are ready. And if it's one thing I saw now as ever, Namibia and South Africa round the corner. Yes, it's one bomb that dropped on Hiroshima. And they get the whole of Japan to surrender. And in 200 years, red cloud on the reservation. But for 400 years, they still can't subdue Africans. The more warriors they come down, it's the more warriors we come. The more warriors
I want to take you. I'm just on the radio. You wait for support.
they kill Toba, they kill Ashanti, they kill Watusi, they kill Benny, they kill Swahili. The more African that they come down.
I'm gonna let you know in a minute.
They deal with Lumumba long ago. Yes, they deal with Moboya and Steve Biko. Yes, they keep killing leaders after leader. But don't care how much they kill, Africans won't surrender.
No surrender. No turning back. Welcome to Ancestral October. And I tell you, Ancestral October coming in with a great banger. We're grateful for the opportunity to be here with you on your station for progressive information and handpicked quality music. Special guest with us for a few more moments is our brother Heru. Let me bring this down. 89.3, our brother Heru Taforiata. And he is joining us next strong in Atlanta. I made a mistake on the website. I was reading his bio. It's herbalresults.net. Herbalresults.net. I thank our sister Dara Monifa Cooper for the information there. It takes a village, you know, and we're calling on the village right now at 404-523-8989, 404-523-8989, WRFG.org. I know that our sisters and brothers who are putting on the Eradicate Conference are offering tickets, a Friday and a Saturday pass. A Friday and a Saturday pass to check out the Eradicate Conference with Brother Heru and Dr. Ruby and others who will be there sharing with us the information. And we're just getting a little tidbit here. Brother Heru, before we let you go, and we're going to put out that call after we let you go, so I'll be able to answer the phone. I know that one is a hot ticket. I wanted to ask you, just generally speaking, for those who may not be able to join your session, we give thanks, you know, for you making yourself available, you know, and all of those things. And that's not just for the radio program today. We just in life, again, as I was saying, as we were bringing you in. It's a gift to humanity when people honor whatever it is that their gift is, you know, their ancestral gift. It's a gift to all humanity. So we're grateful for that. In terms of just basic protocols, you've used the word protocols, and it has not fallen on deaf ears in terms of all the connotations of that word. You know, it takes a certain discipline given over to a system. Are there some basic things that you could share with the family that maybe regardless of their environment, there may be nuances about different aspects of the environment? So for instance, we have some work that we're doing with family in New Orleans, which is that whole area is considered Cancer Alley. And this work is dealing with the aspect of environmental racism, you know, as well as the shifting climate and the man-made shift in the climate, you know. So mangroves disappearing, you know, the Gulf flowing into the Mississippi instead of the other way around, and all kind of toxins in the environment. But regardless, if that's the reality, or you're living in Atlanta, Georgia, and you're not aware that there may be some things affecting the air that you breathe that need to be balanced, right? Because that will affect your body, just because of all the airplanes flying over. You know, what are some basic protocols that you feel are generally applicable?
Yes. So, and by the way, you mentioned New Orleans. I'll be in New Orleans the week after the Atlanta. I'll be giving a lecture on health in New Orleans on the 18th. So, you know, I'll send you the flyer if you have people there, and they, you know, they can know about it. But in terms of just general health, the basic rule of thumb is to limit toxic inputs as much as possible. That would be your sugar, that would be your refined carbohydrates. That's rice, that's pasta, that is refined grains, that's cookies, crackers, donuts. All of that converts into glucose in the body, and that causes inflammation. Then you'll end up with some type of inflammatory disease. What they do is they just give you a Latin name of a body part and put the word itis at the end of it, and that's your sickness. You know, prostatitis, inflammation of the prostate; dermatitis, inflammation of the skin; meningitis, inflammation of the brain; myocarditis, inflammation of the heart. You see all these things start having itis; laryngitis, inflammation of the larynx. It goes on and on and on. Conjunctivitis, inflammation of the eyes; gingivitis, inflammation of the gums, and it goes on and on. And so you start realizing that, okay, what is causing me inflammation? And the two main things that's causing inflammation is, number one, sugar, and foods that convert into sugar. So these refined carbohydrates, that's the white flour, the white rice, all of this stuff that's been stripped out of its fiber. And they strip it out of its fiber so that it'll have a longer shelf life. So anything that's in a box in the grocery store is what you would call processed food. And the reason why it's in a box and it can be in the aisles that's not refrigerated is because it's been stripped of the things that would cause it to degrade. The food industry had one big problem, Ross Kofi, and their big problem, the limiting factor of the food industry, is that food gets rotten. And so because food gets rotten, they had to solve that problem. And so what they did was they had to chemicalize food to pump it with preservatives. And so when you pump it with preservatives, this food now can sit on the shelf for a year and it doesn't degrade. And so here's the rule of thumb. The longer the shelf life of a food, the shorter the shelf life for the human being.
Jeez.
Okay, so
the longer the shelf life of
food, the shorter the shelf life for the human being. That's how because when they talk about processed food, they don't really break down what do they mean by processed food. It's chemicalized food. So once your food has been chemicalized, it is necessarily going to cause inflammation in your body because your body cannot process chemicals that have been made in a laboratory when we have a natural body that's meant to process naturally made foods. So that's number one. You have to cut the toxic inputs from chemicalized foods, refined grains and carbohydrates. And then number two, you're going to also completely throw away vegetable oils. These are the vegetable seed oils. It sounds healthy because it says vegetable oil, but these are vegetable seed oils, and they go through a process where they use hexanes as a liquid substrate to be able to extract the oil from the seeds. And that hexane left over is very toxic, and it creates a thing called linoleic acid, which causes chronic inflammation throughout the body. And all now people don't know what a canola is, you know.
Right.
Yeah, man. All now people don't know what vegetable called canola, you know.
So when you say eradicated vegetable oil, What, I'm sure maybe you eat only live food, but I know you
season
up your food with something. So what kind of oil?
Yeah, so the oil that you would use unrefined virgin coconut oil, right? So that would be the healthiest oil that you can use to cook with is unrefined virgin coconut oil. And you use that, you push and go through, because coconut oil has a thing inside of it that also mimics mama's breast milk. Coconut oil and coconut milk, has monolaurin or lauric acid, which is antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial. So that is the healthiest oil that you can use. These other oils, these seed oils, corn oil, canola oil, which is made from rapeseed oil. They just changed the name because they didn't like the word rape. But they call it canola oil. And then the soy oil, soybean oil, all of that are just general vegetable oil. It's corrosive to the body, and it's going to cause inflammation of the arterial walls, which then causes high blood pressure. So if you can just cut out foods that's in boxes.
And how about olive oil?
So olive oil is good if you don't add heat to it. But the problem is that the olive oil in the United States tends to be stepped on product, as what they would say in the street. It's diluted with canola oil. Because canola oil is so cheap. So if your olive oil is coming directly from Italy and imported, then it would be 100% pure olive oil. But most of the time in the food supply in the United States, they mix it. If they call it olive oil, it's usually mixed with canola oil. And the reason why this is done is that vegetable oils were originally made to be lubricant for industrial equipment. And so it was so cheap to make, they decided to give it to human beings. So they used it for machines, they started giving it to human beings, but it has a deleterious health consequence for human beings. And so people have been taking it, and it's causing all of this inflammation along with sugar. So now you're marrying these two things together. The next thing that people should do is people should fast regularly. A lot of people aren't going to talk to you about fasting because there's no money to be made through fasting, right? But I would suggest that if people could do at least a 24 to 48 to 72 hour water fast at least once every 3 months, that would be very, very advantageous to people's health, and it doesn't cost you anything, and it saves you money. It reverses the aging process, fasting. You could even do intermittent fasting, which is choosing a time window to eat every day. It shouldn't be more than 8 hours, so that would be called a 16-8 schedule. 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours where you can eat. Some people do 4 hours. People who've done the 24 regime have lost over 100 and something pounds within 1 to 2 months. And I have many people I've worked with who've done that. So once you stop the toxic inputs from your food, take away the sugar, the carbohydrates, particularly the simple carbohydrates, which would be the rice, the pasta, the wheat, the bread, the cookies, the crackers, the donuts, the soft drinks, get that out of your life. Get the vegetable oils out of your life. Substitute that with coconut oil, which is unrefined virgin coconut oil. You can get that in any of these grocery stores. And then institute fasting as part of your life. And then the third would be to start taking anti-inflammatory herbs as a part of your natural diet. That could be olive leaf extract, that could be curcumin mixed with black pepper, because they need each other. That could be black seed oil. That could be so many other things that are anti-inflammatory as herbs, oregano oil, and let that be a part of your life. And what you're going to see is you're going to be medication free in no time at all.
I see. Our brother Hiru Tafuriata, thank you for joining us this afternoon, Richmond, and giving us the vibes, sharing it with us, a little bit of what's on the menu, so to speak, at the Eradicate Conference, and just giving us the opportunity to tune in more. Give us your information one more time, please, for those who would like to stay in contact with you and your work.
Yeah, so people who want to contact me personally, you can go to herbalresults.net, right? But before you contact me, just go to the testimonials page. We have videos of people from all over the world, all different walks of life, with all types of disease reversals, going from cancer to high blood pressure to diabetes to epileptic seizures. And they're telling their stories of how they're able to reverse their diseases. And then we have also scientific studies of all these different illnesses and the herbs that we've used to reverse these illnesses consistent with U.S. National Institute of Health studies. And then you can contact me after that. And then for the people who are interested in the conference that is happening on October 10th and 11th, and let me give you the address one more time. That will be Friday, October 10th, 7 to 10 p.m. at Arts Exchange, and then Saturday from 5 to 10 p.m. at Arts Exchange, 2148 Noonan Street, East Point, Georgia, 30344. And that is October 10th and October 11th. And the website for that information, for that particular conference and that lecture, will be eradicateconference.com. It's very, very simple. Eradicateconference.com. And it will be a very historic and special presentation because it won't just be me giving a lecture. It's going to be people who have employed everything that I'm saying, and they have gotten the results, and they are coming to show and prove their cancer reversals, their high blood pressure, and their diabetes reversals. And they were able to do it in about 3 months, man.
Give thanks.
All right.
Give thanks. Yes, that's our brother Heru Tafuri Atta joining us from West Africa and tapping in with us for the vibes in terms of what will be taking place coming up next Strong In Atlanta, Georgia. We do give thanks for the opportunity to share life-changing information. I want to send this one out to our brother, DJ Fifth World, who I inherited this time slot from on the Global Drumbeat. It's African liberation time all the time, seeing. And do remember that also for all of us listening today, Jam Across Georgia is a nonprofit dedicated to improving mental wellness for women and girls through movement, mentorship, and community support. They will be hosting their Fall into Fitness Health Fair on Saturday, October 4th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Lucky Shoals Recreational Center, located at 4651 Britt Road, Norcross, Georgia, 30093. This community event brings together families, individuals, and local organizations for a day of health and movement. It includes health screenings, Red Cross training demonstrations, wellness vendors and resources, as well as DJs and dancing. Optimal dance fitness sessions are available in Zumba, hip hop, Caribbean, and Afro beats. Registration can be found at jamacrossgeorgia.org. That's JAMACROSS Georgia.org. For more information, 404-654-3589 or info@jamacrossgeorgia.org. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by your listener-supported station for progressive information and handpicked quality music, WRFG Atlanta, WRFG.org. Yes, the voice of the people. And I want to say that the Eradicate Conference is also sharing with us a pair of passes, a Friday and a Saturday pass. To the first person who makes a pledge on the $65 and above level, you get a pair of passes. I mean, that's already paid for. That's like 20 times, the value. You know what I mean? Because you eat the radio every day, and then life-changing information as well. 404-523-8989. Also, you can tap in at WRFG.org, donate. And if you want to just verify that donation after you've done that, then tap in and get that pair of passes. 404-523-8989 is the number up here. Also, other options, mail-in check and money order to 1083 Austin Avenue, Northeast Atlanta, Georgia, 30307, or Cash App $ WRFG 893. Listen music.
This true story took place in Port of Spain, Trinidad, on the morning of African Liberation Day, 1976.
This is Caribbean Vibes.
Oh, Kwame boy, we have TV and car. We are living swell, we have the best so far. A nice home in the suburb, a fancy job. Why must you march with this black mob? You are my son, oh Kwame, that I know. For thee I'd march to hell and back to show that I really do love thee. For thee alone. Stay home, Kwame, stay home. Oh, Kwame, we have food and plenty clothes. Do not go and march with the white man foes. To make plenty money, Kwame, set your sights. Try and live more and more like whites. Mama, you have no heart, Kwame replied. While you live swell, Mama, thousands have died. From oppression, hunger, riots and race war, raped of their black culture. So mother, you are wrong, I say. This is Africa's Liberation Day.
This is Caribbean Vibes.
And I must march to join in the struggle. From tyranny to free all black people. With good things, oh dear mama, you are blessed. But mother, Africa is still oppressed. So until liberty all blacks possess, your Kwame cannot rest. Yes, until liberty all blacks possess, your Kwame cannot rest. Yes, until liberty blacks must possess, your Kwame cannot rest. Oh yes, oh yes, your Kwame cannot rest. Mother, when I think of Marcus Garvey, your Kwame cannot rest. Mother, when I think of Jose Marti, your Kwame cannot rest. Mother, do you know what Nkrumah said? Your Kwame cannot rest. We don't want the crumbs, we want the whole bread. Dedicated to black men everywhere. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Fugitives from U.S. authorities has been living for the past several years. Assata Shakur, also known as Joanne Chesimard, convicted and sentenced in the 1973 slaying of a New Jersey state trooper. 2 years into that prison sentence, he broke out of prison. He eluded a massive police dragnet and somehow got here to Cuba, where she's been granted political asylum. But even before that terrible shooting incident, Assata was being watched by police because of her deep involvement in the radical fringe of the civil rights era of the 1960s. She was a member of the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army. Yet, her beginnings were far from radical. attended a mostly white public school in Flushing, Queens, attended a Catholic high school, went out and got a job, then enrolled in a community college to enhance her earning power. Now, up to this point, most anyone would say, so far, so good. Then she became radicalized, and after 2 tumultuous decades, ends up here in Cuba with U.S. authorities itching to get to her. How did this woman move to this from such modest beginnings? In this 90-minute special edition, you'll see our exclusive interview with Ms. Shakur in Cuba, followed by a discussion about Ms. Shakur with persons who were also active in the black struggle of that period, although in different ways. We'll get started in just a moment. During our short stay in Havana. At the site of the old fort overlooking Havana's main harbor that offers a commanding view of Havana's waterfront, and on the campus of the University of Havana. Over a period of several days, she unwound her story that we have edited for continuity. She told us that her given name was Joanne Deborah Byron, and as stated, her early life was pretty much average, right through her late teens, where she graduated from high school and got a job. But then she enrolled in college and underwent a major change here.
I was in Manhattan Community College about maybe 2 weeks before I discovered the Golden Drum Society, which was the black organization on campus. And it was like an awakening. Here were these black people, and they were talking about dashikis in Africa and the richness of Africa. And I was like, huh? You know, I had just come out of this office mentality of, you know, of feeling like a servant and feeling that that was my role to, you know, type the papers. And I went back to school basically so I could make more money. That was really why I went back. I didn't go back with any desire to learn or to explore. I went back to survive. And when I got there and I saw that there was that life was way beyond the file cabinets and the typewriters, but there was more. And here were these black people who were into studying, who were into just talking about what was happening, talking about the war, talking about talking about what all of this meant, trying to analyze it with a kind of energy that was good, that was strong, that was rich, and I just got into it. I mean, it just was like something like back into it. I was there, and it was good. It made me feel alive.
We're talking about the civil rights era of the 1960s now, where the black struggle against injustice was in full swing. The old order of segregation and bias was being subjected to a massive and varied challenge. Dr. King's tactics of passive resistance were viewed as radical at the time, and then black students formed their own faction, which was similar to Dr. King's approach initially, with the special aggressive energy of youth.
We were the troops. We were the people who went to Selma 2 years before Dr. King ever saw that town. We were the people who went into rural Mississippi when the NAACP told us it was too dangerous, that you had to attack Mississippi from the outside, not from the inside. We were the people who, working for $10 a week, went all over the rural South in extremely dangerous circumstances, risking life and limb, going to jail, being beaten, harassed by policemen, not eating right, not having any clothes to wear. And I think, without trying to be too modest, that we were the glue that held all of this movement together. Dr. King was the articulator and the spokesman. The SCLC workers became the instant organizers, go into a town, spend a couple of weeks, stir up emotion and passion, bring in Dr. King, makes a speech, have a march, out the next day. We were there for the long haul.
There was the NAACP fighting the battle through the courts, the Urban League fighting the fight with corporate America, and a host of other civil rights groups.
The thing that influenced me the most was history, reading and understanding that black people struggled in history from Africa all the way up to the time that I was living in. It was not a process where people were enslaved and went through that whole thing as victims. That our people had a long, rich, strong history, an intellectual history, a history of struggling from taking over slave ships to strikes to building organizations, and that was a history that was not just a matter of George Washington Carver inventing things with peace. And I don't really need to push him down because I think he made a great contribution, but I'm saying that was all that I had learned before that. The only figures who had stood out was Harriet Tubman, and it was Harriet Tubman, George Washington Carver, and Booker T. Washington. That was my whole concept, my whole understanding of Black history up until that time. And I really thought that Lincoln freed the slaves. I really thought that the Civil War was fought for slavery. And when I started to see the real picture of what happened to us as a people and really started to analyze what American history was all about, I began to look at things in a whole nother way and to see that it was a systematic, this place called America, the U.S. of A., had systematically wiped out Indians, had systematically enslaved Black people, and then after slavery was officially abolished, that the oppression didn't end. It just changed form.
Joanne, as she was then known, underwent an awakening that thousands of young Americans, black and white, underwent at the time. As she became more informed, she became a highly charged young person. The next logical step was to become active.
We formed a Third World Coalition, and we ran for, in the student council elections. I was one of the student representatives. That was one part of it. And to be able to think about overcoming the tremendous odds that I were against was my grandmother. She came from Wilmington, North Carolina, to see me at Yardville Prison. I was in that prison. I was put in a maximum security unit in a cell with 2 guards in front of the cell 24 hours a day, and a cell between 2 gun towers that could train their guns directly on the cell. I was told that I was in the Yardville unit for women, even though I was the only woman, and they tried to keep me there for the rest of my life. My grandmother came to visit me there to tell me a dream, and she came with all of my family, and everybody was happy, and I'm like, what's happening with y'all? You're in this, no, she had a dream, and I was like, okay. And so my grandmother's dream was that she was dressing me, that she was in an old house that she lived in when she lived in New York still. And she was putting clothes on me. I said, is that the dream? She said, that's the dream. And I said, well, was I little or big? She said, no, you were big. So I said, oh my God, the only time people dress anybody when they're grown is when they're dead. And so she said, no, I know what you're thinking. No. What this dream means is that you are going to leave this prison. I don't know when, but it's going to be much less time than you've already spent here. And, I didn't understand the dream, to be honest. It didn't make any sense to me. What does this have and wearing clothes have to do with getting out of prison? But my grandmother has always had dreams, and her dreams have always come true.
I don't know how my mother walked her trouble down. I don't know how my father stood his ground. I don't know how my people survived slavery. I do remember, that's why I believe. I don't know why the rivers overflow their banks. I don't know why the snow falls and covers the ground. I don't know why the hurricane sweeps through the land every now and then. Standing in a rainstorm, I believe.
Many people say that injustice and hunger are walking freely all over the universe, and that nature is seeking a response. The moon and the sun once asked the earth, "Where are the women warriors?" The earth responded, "They've been scattered all over the world, but they can always be identified by the beauty in their eyes, which reflects the dignity and the greatness of the rainbow. Nevertheless," continued the earth, "they suffer greatly, often much more than what is commonly endured by human beings. Why?" Then the moon and the sun responded energetically, "We have to look for them. We have to bring them together. Because it is only women warriors who know how to survive in the midst of so much suffering, struggling, struggling, struggling."
I come from a tradition of women maroons, cimarrons, who didn't just try to escape from oppression, but were totally mind, body, spirit committed to resisting and committed to winning, whether was Nanny in Jamaica, who fought against the enslavers, whether it was Harriet Tubman, who helped to free more than 700 slaves. I think I come from a very strong history, and I simply want to live on this planet and to continue that tradition and to try in my little way to make my ancestors proud. I want to live in a country where freedom means something. Well, when I came to Cuba, I really didn't know what to expect. I had these crazy images, because even though I considered myself a socialist, I considered myself someone who really identified with the Cuban Revolution, I had been raised on a diet of anti-communism. And so I came here and I was expecting, first of all, everybody to look like Fidel. I thought everybody was going to wear green fatigues and stuff. It was just like a crazy thing. And I thought people would be talking like the revolution. I just had these crazy stereotypes. And then when I came, it was like, wow, a whole new world. The first thing that hit me was, just how beautiful the nature is here. You know, whether it's the sea, whether it's the plants. This is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. Everything is so lush, so green, so ripe. And, you know, just the climate made me immediately feel at home. I was very much impressed by the healthcare system, by the education system, by the sports teams, by all of the many things that the revolution has been able to accomplish. What has impressed me most has been how people live, just how people relate to each other. I mean, I come from a society that is literally at war with itself. I didn't even know how to react to people when I came here. People would just come off the street and start talking to me, and I would immediately get paranoid. What do they want? What, you know, it was very difficult for me to realize. You know, somebody would say, you know, what time is it? Or where did you buy that? Because Cubans will come up to you and just talk to you, you know, whether you were in a store or on a line. And that was something very different, that human contact. I was born in 1947 in New York City. I lived with my mother and my aunt and my grandparents in a house in Queens, New York, in Jamaica, Queens. And I stayed there until I was about 3 or something. And I went with my grandparents to live in Wilmington, North Carolina. My grandparents decided to go back to Wilmington because Wilmington was their home. And because also they wanted to open up a small business. They had saved all their money hoping to go back to Wilmington, and they did go back, and they opened up a small business on the beach by the sea. They opened the business because at that time, Wilmington was completely segregated. Well, the South was just totally segregated. It was apartheid. What that meant was that there were black schools. For example, I went to a all-black school, the Gregory School. There were the Black Library. You know, we grew up with that kind of reality of not voluntarily living like that, not voluntarily accepting apartheid, but understanding that the price of stepping out or standing up alone could possibly be death. From slavery, the idea of political prisoners started. We were political prisoners brought here from Africa. We were political prisoners in it. In order to keep colonialism fat, in order to keep the plantation owners that profited from our sweat and labors, we were kidnapped and brought here as prisoners, and our status hasn't changed, whether it's on the streets. We're prisoners of the ghettos. in Harlem, the prisoners in small tenements with prisoners of urine smelling hallways. And I mean, I've always been a prisoner. I've never been free in my life. I don't know what freedom means. Sitting in this place on this plantation, you know, you think back to what those slaves had to deal with, and that probably the only beauty that they saw was the human beauty between them and the beauty of the sky and of the trees and of the grass. And I think that probably helped them to survive, to stay alive internally, spiritually. Growing up, you know, by the sea and seeing the beauty of this planet, it was hard not to really have a profound respect for this planet, for nature. My grandmother, she could not stand people throwing paper on the floor. I mean, she could not take that. That was a crime for her, because and then, you know, she would say, look at these grown people, you know, what's wrong with their hands? They can't hold the paper until they find a trash can, you know. I think that how we live in this earth is very much tied to how we think about nature. And so I think that it's important for African people and all people who appreciate living to make sure that our children and our grandchildren have a planet that is livable. And that means to make very serious changes in the order of the priorities and the politics that exist today. Being African is not a matter of race. It's a matter of a history, of a culture, of a struggle of a people. And the important thing is to be able to remember that, not to be disassociated from that, not to be torn from that, to carry that on into the future and to carry that on in changing the future.
You tune into WRFJ Atlanta 89.3 FM. You're listening in and tune in if you're joining us on YouTube or Facebook to Eyes on the Rainbow, a documentary about Mama Assata Shakur, and we're going to let that continue. Thank you for those of you who've called in with your pledge and continue to call in right now, 404-523-8989. That's why we're off the mic. One of the great reasons we get to be off the mic and to be able to play this very powerful documentary. We also thank Barbara Gill Noble, another ancestor, another one who is an ascended master craftsman in the liberation journey through the realm of education, public education, like it is. He also had an interview with Mama Assata, and some of that footage is in this documentary, Eyes on the Rainbow, which can be found on YouTube as well. 404-523-8989 is our number, 404-523-8989. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Much love to everyone. We're going to continue with Mama Assata in her own words.
One of the most shocking things when I came to Cuba was just how African Cuba is. I mean, I didn't realize that there were this whole huge number of African people on this island. I had no idea, because the projection is very different, how you are taught to think about Cuba in the U.S. media. So I was really shocked. And then I began to be exposed to the culture, and the culture is so rich, whether it's in dance, whether it's music. It's so African. There's the rhythm, there's the drums, I began to be aware of just how much they had robbed us in the United States, because the slavery, the kind of slavery that existed here was terrible, and equally as terrible in the United States, but people were able to keep their religions, their gods, their heart peace language. They were able to maintain dances, rituals that were directly from Africa. And for the first time in my life, I became acquainted with the Orishas, with Yemaya, Shango, Obatala, and I felt like, wow, I was reclaiming just another piece that was stolen from us.
Yagumagarere abata Erosi baba garere Yagumagarere alakariye Erosi baba garere Moro coro como temero Modena que momo temaka Moro coro como temero Modena que momo temaka Otani mama tara Jeronima marora, lawe de loro teriki, teriki loro nga peleya, sakake misa okuroba, boba ena yemata que yana yo. Moro, moro, como temero, condena y como demanda. Moro, moro, como temero, condena y como demanda. Otani mamatara, Eloni mamarora, Yahweh Elonu seriki, seriki lolu apeleya, sakaki misa okuroba, ubalena yemata ke yana eriki, yana eri omo, yana
The Black Panther Party came under the guns of the FBI, as did all of the Black Liberation Movement. It didn't matter what positions you took. It mattered that people related to those positions, that people understood what you were saying, that people supported you. And I think that when J. Edgar Hoover and those who control the United States government understood how many young people looked to the party for leadership, how many young people were inspired by the Black Panther Party, how many young people supported the activities of the Black Panther Party. And it was, people, just ordinary street people, working people, mothers, grandmothers who would come to the office and bring clothes, come to the office and make donations. So the government just perceived us as a threat because they understood that we were serious. They understood we were telling the truth. And they understood also that we were becoming a much more sophisticated opposition. We were not just the piece of pie opposition, but that we wanted a real structural change in the United States. And so we took very clear positions. We opposed the United States government intervention in Vietnam. We opposed the blockade against Cuba and all of the other U.S. policies that were hostile to the Cuban Revolution. We opposed the United States policies of supporting apartheid in South Africa. We opposed all of the U.S. government's imperialist policies against all progressive people's struggles. By the 1960s, the late end of the 1960s, the Black Liberation Movement became the main target of the counterintelligence program. And what they did was to try to neutralize all of our leaders, to prevent young people from coming together and uniting. And so what they did is try to pit organization against organization. They tried to pit leaders in the same organizations against each other. In New York, where I was, what they did was they arrested in, I think it was 1967, 1968. I'm not very clear on the date. I don't remember it at this moment. They arrested on charges of conspiracy 21 of our most effective activists, of our most effective leaders. As a movement, have to concentrate a lot of our energies on trying to liberate our imprisoned comrades. Even though they were given bail, the bail